So I mentioned a game on the Nintendo eShop called Go Minimal, and I picked it up. It was $2, and it was a Go game, so I had to grab it and tell you guys about it. And the name, the name was apt. Let's put it that way. It is very minimal, a minimal form of Go that's playable on the Switch, and I liked the aesthetic of it. I kind of wish that more Go servers would lean to this flat kind of look. We have many options for the kind of more realistic looking stones, but I kind of liked the look of Go Minimal. But in terms of the gameplay and the features, okay, so one thing is that you need a Nintendo Online subscription to play online, and I don't have one of those. I don't really play online except on the PC. So I don't have that. I don't think I'm going to get it just for Go Minimal, especially since I think that once I start looking for a game, there will be also a minimal number of players available on the server. It's just a hunch. But I did try out the regular gameplay where you can pass the system to a friend and then play. You can select your move via the analog sticks, or you can use the touchpad and tap your move on. And I just kind of made sure it had all the standard Go rules in place, like and capture, and did it treat all that stuff correctly. And as far as I could tell, it did. And I didn't play like a full-on game by myself all the way to the end. But there's no capture noise, which was very strange to me because that's like the most satisfying part of Go. And it had a really weird feature that I've never seen in any other Go rendition. And it was a territory feature that was a running count. And it's like, how do you do that, right? It's like, it's not an estimate. It is a territory feature that counts for you solidified territory. So every time you made an actual, like, fully bounded out, like, piece of territory, it would give you the territory score update. And it would be like territory 7 after you have put the stone down to capture some stones. And so it's like not just the prisoners, but also the territories inside. And it's kind of strange. I don't know. I mean, I guess like if you're coding the game, you kind of need to do something like that. But yeah, it was really weird. But overall, you can play Go on it, and it's just, a portable way to play Go, and it's very minimal. So that was that. You're listening to Starpoint, the show about Go for Go fans, away from the board. I made a Go variant. I didn't expect to do that, but I was kind of thinking, like, I want to make a Go variant that I can play on my own. I don't know why. I don't remember what gave me the urge to create a Solitaire Go game, but I ended up kind of doing it. I'll explain the rules eventually, but I want to tell you the journey I took to get there, which is starting by asking the question, like, what makes a good solitaire game in the first place? Well, by definition, you have to be able to play alone, right? Alone. And I think alone also includes AI, like includes as in excludes AI in alone. So you shouldn't be able to play with an AI for a solitaire game. Like, that's not, an AI shouldn't be necessary. There you go. I had a little trouble there. An AI shouldn't be necessary to play a solitaire game. Otherwise, it's just a multiplayer game with AI standing in. Like, you wouldn't call like a video game, a PvE video game, a solitaire game, because you need the AI in the video game and all the stuff, like the bells and whistles that come with it. I think there is a certain nature to solitaire games that require you to be able to set it up and then just play on your own without any outside agents, AI included. I do think that randomizer elements are permitted, whether those be through dice or cards or some other means, like you could use a spinner, or even if you were to go to the territory of like, hey, you got to use the random number generator on Google to play this game, I would still permit that. In fact, Solitaire, the game Solitaire, where you line up cards and you try to sort them into 4 piles, that has a random element. You shuffle the deck. And so that's why cards are very suited for solitaire games, because you can just shuffle the deck and that creates a new game every time. A lot of solitaire games have a random element in it, like I said, solitaire and then any card solitaire game. But some kind of solitaire games are more deterministic and they don't have any randomizer element to it, but that makes them very kind of linear, and once you've solved it, and there's not really a chance for you to play. Again, like Knight's Tour, for example, this is a kind of a solitaire-ish game where you try to hit all of the squares on a chessboard using a knight, never visiting the same square twice. And it's very difficult, and there's a very complex pattern, and it was featured on in Devil's Plan, I mentioned a couple episodes back. And also another example of a more deterministic solitaire game is Peg Solitaire. If you've ever been to a little restaurant and then they have a little puzzle on the table, it's a triangle with a bunch of pegs in it, and you're supposed to hop the pegs. And every time you hop a peg with another peg, the hopped peg disappears, kind of like in checkers. And then you're supposed to try to find the pattern that gets rid of all of those pegs except for one. Obviously, you can't get rid of the last one without another peg to jump over it. And I remember I learned the pattern at some point and was able to just consistently win. I forgot it. It's like the Rubik's Cube. I knew how to solve it for like a couple days, and then I forgot how to do it. But yeah, those games are like things that you can kind of play with on your own, and you don't really need anybody else. But once you solve it and you kind of can practice and get better at it, it's kind of solved and you don't really have anything else to do, right? You memorize it. I mean, you could do it faster, I guess, and then it becomes kind of like a speed game. But anyway, so those are the 2 categories that would initially come to mind, like random and deterministic. And then there's actually one more category I kind of want to mention, which is like the designed form of solitaire games. And I kind of see this as like Sudoku, right? It's a game you can do on your own, but it needs to be designed by somebody for you to do. Maybe crosswords could also count in this. And I'm sure you guys can think of loads of other examples, but those are the ones that came to my head for solitaire games. Now, in trying to apply these principles and categories to Go, what did I want in a Go solitaire game? I thought about how I can make it random, or I didn't think I liked the idea of making a deterministic Go solitaire game. I didn't really like, that's not really, I guess, as solitaire to me. I don't know if that makes sense, but I wanted the game to either be like a randomized element that you could play just with some random element and you could just play it over and over again, or maybe some kind of designed element, but I couldn't really figure out what to do. But I wanted the game to resemble Go. It should not just use the Go stones, but have some Go rule elements to it. I wanted to be able to play by myself without many resources. Just if you had the Go set, you would be able to play. I tried a whole bunch of different things, like sliding stones. Like, what if you could slide stones around while playing? And eventually I started trying to design something around Ataris. I thought Ataris kind of attracted my attention because they kind of have this cause and effect relationship. And I started off by putting down on a 9x9 board. I have a handmade 9x9 board that I made with a couple friends, and I just put some stones on and just started playing around. It's kind of how you play, how you design a game. Maybe is you just play around with certain mechanics. And I started off by making an Atari, and I thought, okay, well, what happens if I extend from this Atari? Let's say that you have to extend out from an Atari. It's just a very simple rule. And so I did that, and then I thought, okay, well, what if that Atari was another Atari on the other group of stones? So I started making this kind of chain, and I realized that in designing this little chain, it was more fun than whatever puzzle I was trying to make. I was just trying to design a puzzle for somebody to solve, but in designing that puzzle, I thought, hey, this is actually more fun than whatever puzzle I thought was going to be solved. So it just became Solitaire Go, and I think the best alternative name for this form of Go might be Rube Goldberg Go, because it's kind of like a Rube Goldberg machine once you've finished. Another name I considered is Chain Reaction Go, or maybe like Dominoes Go, something like that. But anyway, here's how it works if you haven't figured it out already. So the goal is just to create the largest chain of Ataris on the board. The rule is when a group is put into Atari, it must extend to escape that Atari. When a group is put into Atari, it must extend to escape that Atari. And when a group has one liberty left, there's only one way to extend to escape that Atari, so there's only one possible move. And then that stone that escapes the Atari must put the opposing group into Atari as well. And so you start off with one Atari on the board, you extend that, and then you say, okay, how can I get this stone that I just extended off of to create an Atari for the other color, right? Let's say you start with a black stone Atari-ing a white stone, and the white stone extends out. And that new stone that the white extends out to, you want that stone to play a key part in an Atari of one of the black groups. So you create some arrangement and you make an adjustment on the board position, adding and removing stones to make that happen. Okay, then great. I have now made a board position where my black stone Ataris this white stone, that white stone extends to escape, that stone then Ataris a black group. Now that black group must extend to escape that Atari. And then that stone should in turn create another Atari for the white group. And you just keep trying to design a board position around this concept. One note to the rule, you cannot add a move that would put two Ataris on the board. And you can't self-Atari, right? So you can't put in a move that would put your opponent in an Atari as well as yourself. So you have to keep your Atarian group more than one liberty, and you try to fill up the board. So I hope you're able to follow. If you're not, don't worry. I'm going to post the examples that I've made in the description. So go ahead and check those out. There's like a OGS puzzle group that I made with a few examples. If you're going to use a physical board, I recommend taking pictures of your board along the way with a phone, or Polaroid camera, I guess, whatever you have, or you can even just like jot down. I don't know. Probably just pictures is the best, because it can get kind of crazy. I can when you play out the Ataris on the board, and then you try to figure out the next group of stones you need to put in to make the whole thing work, you can easily forget what stones were there in the first place. So when I was doing it, I kept on taking pictures at every checkpoint and then removing the stones and then trying to start over again. So while you're building this out, you're going to realize that some of the stones that you add, you need to be careful not to affect your previous groups and previous Ataris. And it really becomes an experience of just tinkering and creating the coolest chain reaction possible. I think it really reminded me of Conway's Game of Life in a way, where it's just a certain amount of rules and then they ripple out into different effects on a grid. And that's kind of like the action that you're performing here. So I hope you guys are able to follow and understand what I mean by this. What I liked about what I had created here with Solitaire Go is that it's very zen, because although it has a goal, like you're just trying to create the largest Atari chain possible, and you're able to create these Ataris in whatever way you want. So it feels goal-less. It feels like you have a goal that you want to achieve, but also feels like you don't really have a goal. You're just kind of wandering a little bit. And in that wandering, I found a lot of creativity comes out. You can play with the stones in many different ways to create Ataris here and there. And it's actually quite fun. At least it is for me. And I thought of it sort of akin to stacking cards or setting up dominoes, that kind of activity. So I don't know if you could really call it a game, because it's not like a win-lose thing, but I certainly had fun doing it. It has an element of creativity. I started playing around with certain ideas, as you might be able to see in my examples. I might go and add more if I have time, but I started getting curious, like, what if I did it this way? And like, what other kind of patterns can I make? Will it make you better at Go? Almost certainly not. This is Go-esque, and it has some Go-related stuff in it, but I don't think it really has much Go training usefulness, except for maybe beginners. Beginners may be good at this game, or not be good at this game. Beginners may have some benefit from this game because it will teach them a little better how to manage and find Ataris and what different kinds of forms Ataris can take. I think that, so what I actually did was, when I first created my first Rube Goldberg Go composition or whatever, I kind of got excited. I called my wife over and I said, hey, look at this. Can you see what happens if you Atari this stone? And she extended it out. Then I said, did that do anything? Did that put another group in Atari? And then she was able to find that. And then she kind of followed the chain of events to the end of the board, like the chain of Ataris that I made on the 9x9. And, you know, it was like a good little beginner exercise to find Ataris. And I thought it's like has a balance between, like, okay, what strong players can do and what weak players can do with this kind of game. And in fact, there is a mode, a variant that I thought might suit people who want to challenge themselves with this kind of game, with expert mode, which would be very difficult. And I actually don't think I would find this zen at all, and I would find it very difficult and stressful. But if you could build the Atari pattern out without checking the stones and playing out the Ataris, see how far you can get. It's kind of like setting up dominoes, not being sure if one domino will hit the other, or if your other dominoes are going to run into each other and cause the whole mess to not work. I honestly can't, I don't think I could do that even on a 9x9. What I did was either with a picture method, but when I actually started writing them down into OGS, it was so easy because of the branching, and I was able to go back and then check the design and then go forward in the thing and then go back. It was so much easier digitally, and it was very convenient, and I was totally fine with it doing it that method. But if you're able to do it without referencing your design or your like what actually happens, then you have to really pay attention to how the stones interact, what spaces have been filled, because eventually like a lot of the spaces get filled by stones. And you know that's when it gets challenging. If you've ever played one color Go, you just see this mass of stones. That's when it starts getting, like when you see a couple of shapes on the here and there scattered throughout the board, you can kind of imagine what the black stones are and what the white stones are because there's some patterns. But as soon as they start like creating this congealed mass of white stones, then you're kind of in trouble, at least for me. Speaking of which, on a 19 by 19 board, I've never tried this form of Go. So I would be interested to see if anybody dares to create a massive composition on a 19 by 19 board. And I think that's another variant. So you could always obviously play this on any size board. In fact, my first one that I made, I started on the 9 by 9, but I didn't even use up all of it. I kind of got crammed into a corner. And that's why that particular composition is called Cornered. And I also had fun naming these compositions. If you look at the three, I have 3 examples up right now. And the first one's called Cornered because you get cornered. Second one is called, what was the second one called? Second one's called All Roads Lead to the Golden Chicken. And if you know what the golden chicken standing on one leg thing is, then you may understand why I named it that. And then the last one is called Racing Snakes. I do want to create more. I want to like kind of exercise my creative brain to see what other possibilities there are. But for now, it's just those 3. I'd love to hear any rule changes that you might have, any additions or adaptations that you can think of. And if you try it out, please let me know what your experience was. And better yet, let me know how I can see your composition. I've had a lot of fun naming these things, and I think that's part of the fun. It's like Go is so like visual. It's like there's a lot of analogies in Go, and with the whole bamboo joint thing, monkey jump thing, and you can easily see why it's named those things. So when you create a pattern on the board, it's kind of fun to think of some kind of metaphor that describes it. And there's some games that are even like that, like the 9 Dragons Fighting Over a Pearl game, which is so cool. That's such a cool name. So I think that's also part of the fun. So I didn't create a game in the sense of like something to challenge yourself with, to achieve a win condition and goal. But I thought I came up with a nice quiet activity that you can do when you have a set of Go stones and you have nobody else to play with. I really hope I gave you guys a clear enough idea of how to play Solitaire Go. Maybe I'll recap just in case somebody's lost out there and wants one more try. But basically, here's what you do. You grab some stones and a board. I think it's more fun with the physical, although it is a little harder because you need to kind of keep track. Oh, by the way, you can also play with pencil and paper, which is pretty cool. You can just kind of scribble down a composition, although you need some grid paper maybe, or some of those sticky notes at store.starpointpaduk.com. But anyway, you grab the board and stones and you just create some kind of Atari, any kind of Atari on the board. You can do a single stone or a group of stones, but make sure your black stones are Atarying a white stone. And then, I don't know, I guess this part's not really that important, but you can take out one of the black stones because that's basically the first domino, and you'll just kind of hold that as the trigger for setting up everything. But anyway, you do that, and then you escape that stone that was an Atari or that group that was an Atari, and then build an Atari using that stone. That stone needs to Atari a black group in turn. Then that black group needs to escape, and then that escape stone must Atari a white group. And just try to spread that as much as you can throughout the board. That's it. If you guys are still confused, I would love to try to explain more. But I think it's pretty straightforward. And then once you look at the examples, you're going to have to work a little bit to find the first move, or you can cheat and just click around and you'll see the hint or whatever. But once you see that, I think you'll kind of understand what I'm talking about. It's an Atari chain of events. It's very simple. But now it's time for the DK Advice Corner, and the tip of the day is don't try to save both sides. I see this so much in the beginner levels. People get cut and then they try to save both sides and they don't really make a sacrifice. Saving both sides basically means I'm going to devote an equal amount of insufficient resources to both sides and lose everything. When somebody cuts you and your group is cut in half, really try to get a sense of what you want out of that and what side you want. And really try to prioritize one side. If you can get both sides, great, but it's probably going to be difficult. And after many games, you will realize it's not always easy to save both sides. Usually, when you get cut severely and you can't have the two groups reunite easily, then it's time to think, like, do I want the outside? Do I want the inside? So as a rule of thumb, there's always exceptions to these rules of thumb. Don't try to save both sides. And now it's time for listener mail. Buzzsaw writes, Justin, this is in response to your question about how the AGA member numbers are assigned. Awesome, I am curious. They are currently assigned in sequence based on the date that a new member joins. Once a member is assigned a number, it is theirs for life and it will never be recycled to someone else, not even after death. If they leave the AGA and return later, their number is still there for them. So generally, you can tell who has been a member longer based on their AGA numbers. So, I might have accidentally gotten 2 AGA numbers, if I recall. I think I remember this number is not good. Like, I was entered twice for some reason. It's pretty foggy, but anyway, I guess that's good to know that I will keep my number forever. I haven't had it memorized yet. My number's not 8 like yours. I've memorized your number. There's more to that story than that, however. Before the mid-70s, there were no membership numbers. When the AGA decided to assign numbers, they were assigned starting with number 101 and ending with number 841. They were assigned in sequence to current members alphabetically. Alan Abramson got 101 and Sam Zimmerman got 841. After that, as new members joined, they got assigned the next available number. Okay. I always considered these original 3-digit numbers to be prestigious, but I doubt that many people are aware of the history. Well, now that I know, I will be on the lookout. If I ever play someone with one of these 3-digit numbers from 101 to 841, then I will pay my respects. I briefly joined the AGA before the numbers came out, but I allowed my membership to lapse. Therefore, I never got a prestigious 3-digit number. When I joined the AGA in 1997, I got a 4-digit number, which I have since forgotten. In 1998, I heard that the AGA was selling lifetime memberships for $1,000. One of the benefits of obtaining the membership was that you could claim one of the numbers that were never used when numbers were originally assigned. It turns out that a few of the 1-digit numbers were already taken. Lasker had number 1. That's crazy. I love that. Lasker is number 1. I knew that 7, 8, and 9 were still available when I joined. I decided on 8 because if you placed it on its side, it was an infinity symbol. It was a lot of money to lay out, but I never regretted it because it's been great fun having the number 8. And the older I got, the more I look as if I deserve to have it. There eventually came a time when there were issues with the database which prevented the insurance of additional 2-digit numbers, and even though there are probably still 2-digit numbers available, they have never been assigned and are unlikely to be assigned in the future. That makes my number 8 all the more precious to me. And that is the story of the AGA membership numbers. Buzzsaw. Thank you, Buzzsaw. That was actually so interesting and informative. Yeah, that's not as simple, as I would have originally thought. And this kind of, I feel like the number 8, it's somehow cooler than, let's say you had like 827. Like that's a cool number too, because it's definitely like within that first set. But then 8, it's just so clean, and it's just so like, how are you just number 8? And I think there's like a little more fun in that as well. But that's really cool. I'm curious if there are any other listeners out there who have this kind of historical number, special number on the AGA, or if you guys have any stories about your AGA numbers, I would love to hear. Fun fact, guys, AGA, I probably mentioned this before on the podcast, older than the other Go associations like in Asia, the Korean one and the Japanese one. The AGA is old, but somehow smaller. Anyway, thanks so much for writing in, Buzzsaw. Tojo writes, for episode 96, in response to my last mail, I actually have 2 different ideas for Go variations. Okay, so you told me you had some Go variations. I asked about them, and your variations are as follows. Number 1, put an M&M or what have you, sort of like wall go, I suppose. Never heard of it till before I sent my last listener mail. Number 2, instead of a handicap based on skill level example. I am a 15Q, my opponent is... Instead of a handicap based on skill level example. Okay, I'm not sure if I understand that sentence, but let me continue. I am 15Q, my opponent is 8Q. I put down a dozen stones. I create my most productive forces where I find fit. My opponent, being 8Q, gets half the stones to put down. It's a variation to handicaps, yet allowing an alignment of strength. I've only ever tried the wall go. This other idea is new to me. Number 2. And then you wrote back, seems like a couple days later, I ran a match, it doesn't hold water, LOL. That's what happens usually when you have an idea for a game and then you try it out. The testing phase is crucial, because then you find out what works and what doesn't work. The only thing about that number 2, so I guess from what I understand, your number 1 is really just wall go, but you're using some other prop to fill in the gaps. And then number 2, it's kind of a cool idea, but how do you consolidate the fact that when I put down my stones in the beginning, the next player, when they do it, they know where all my stones are? Unless you can combine this with maybe the hidden move go thing, where you decide the positions of all your handicap stones in private, in secret, and then you come together and then you combine the 2 boards, and then you have a battlefield to work off of. That might be cool. Maybe that fixed, I don't know what problem you ran into when trying this out, but maybe that fixes your problem. And that would be like, you would only need 1 more rule to handle when you guys take up the same spot. Lots of different possibilities there. You can have the stones just disappear, no stone goes there. Maybe you have like a third kind of stone, like a brick stone or a concrete stone, which is like neither black nor white, but it behaves like the edge of the board. Or you can just say like, hey, as an additional handicap, the weaker player gets to dominate, and then that's it. If you manage to you sink my battleship, you sink my battleship. So it's always fun talking about Go variations, and very relevant to the episode. But the question of the week this week is, have you any Solitaire Go variants to share? I haven't heard of any, so that's what kind of prompted me to try to do this. And I want to know if there are any Solitaire Go variants that I haven't heard of that you guys know about. So if you want to share your thoughts on that question, or if you have a Go story you want to share, or you want to ask me a question, leave a comment wherever you found this episode, or email me directly at starpointpaduk@gmail.com. That's starpointbaduk@gmail.com. If you're a YouTube listener, I would greatly appreciate a like and a subscribe. And if you're a podcast listener, reviews and ratings also help. And a very special thank you, as always, to James B., Tristan, Jeffrey H., Tyraniton for supporting Starpoint. If you want to support the show in any capacity, you can go to ko-fi.com/starpointpaduk, that's KO-FI, or check out the Starpoint store at store.starpointpaduk.com. And come on over to the Discord. You can find the link in the description. Has anyone tried ice fishing? I actually went ice fishing once with my dad in Canada. That's where I grew up. And it was quite an experience. We dug a hole in the ice, or drilled a hole in the ice, and then I put the fishing line down, and then nothing happened, and it was great. But we saw a large, shadowy figure in the distance, and my dad was like, that was a Yeti, right? It kind of got out of view. It moved out of vision after a little bit, so we couldn't get a good look at it, but he said that it was a Yeti. And I said, I didn't know there were Yetis in Canada. And anyway, fun fact, the Yeti's favorite Go move is the avalanche Joseki. Thanks for listening. Keep playing Go.